Yes, hello, folks. Welcome to the weekly Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Phil Brand, joined by my regular co-host, the excellent James Rhodes, on a somber Monday morning after a disappointing defeat this weekend to Brentford. There's been no shortage of commentary, Jamesy, from legends, people from all different walks of life who've a tenuous connection to United. I think everyone's been asked for their views, so it's going to be hard for us to say something that hasn't already been said. We're all feeling it down. I don't want to turn this into, a slit your wrist podcast.
A funeral procession? Yeah, we've had enough of those, haven't we, on this? Yeah.
But what do you think? What was your opinion on the game?
It was, I think that one was, for me, the worst game this season. Even worse than Grimsby. And I think not necessarily because obviously with Grimsby you're playing a worse team and all of that, but because this is a Premier League game. There's nothing to explain it. It's not like, oh, we had a slip. It was just, this was an opportunity to take some momentum from Chelsea. I think there'd been some decent performances where United didn't come through and get a result, didn't get a goal here and there that cost them through the start of the year, like from the opener at Arsenal and things like that as well. This wasn't any of those things. It was bad. It was bad from kickoff. It was bad from minute one. There was no spell where you're like, well, they just got unlucky in that situation, and then things went sideways.
I mean,
they maybe at the end, they missed a penalty. I do know that aspect of it again, which I will say a couple of things,
James. I will say a couple of things in Amorim's slate defense. Right, one, that's a foul for the first goal. It's a foul, right? On Cunha.
Oh yeah, 100% it is. I rewatched it again. I was like, it was a terrible line from Maguire too, by the way, like just terrible offside line. But it's a foul. It is a foul.
Yeah, because I was watching. Even it was the first 5 minutes of the second half, Paulson gives an identical situation as a free kick to Brentford. I'm like, that is a foul on Cunha, right?
Yeah,
that's a free kick that Liverpool get. That's a free kick that Arsenal get, right? It's a free kick that City get. Now the next, there's two individual errors in those. In De Ligt and Maguire. It's hard for Ruben Amorim to get that out of someone's game.
Yeah.
That's not systemic, right? Far be it from me to defend them, but
no, the errors they make. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, and then the VAR decision on Nathan Collins is a total disgrace, James. It's just indefensible.
Yeah, there's nothing you can say about that.
It is a disgrace. Like, that is a pivotal moment in that game. They should have went down to 10 men, and if that had been in reverse, you would have had Sky Sports, right? Doing mock-ups of, trying to contact Alf Ramsey by the seance to see what he thinks, right? To see, like, the fact that was a key moment in the game, and to delay it 5 minutes. Look, you look at that decision. There's no gray area. You make a decision in 5 seconds. Either it's a straight red or it's not.
Yeah.
And you can't say it's not a straight red because Mpumo is not in control of the ball. Well, there's an obvious reason for that, mate.
Yeah, because he just dragged him down by the shoulder from behind. How's he supposed to control the ball?
Well, then a 5-minute delay for the penalty. Now, I'm not exculpating Bruno Fernandes here. He should score. That to me is that's a really bad.
And that's been going on for a long time, right? And so it's not, it's like this refereeing thing. It's important to continue calling it out because this is not like, oh, it's Ruben Amorim or defense. It's like, this has been going on for years. This has happened to every single manager here, that these things happen game after game.
But you know what I don't understand, James? It's the arrogance of it. We're just going to hang the game, hold the game up for 5 minutes, How do you need 5 minutes to make that decision? What are we,
No, they
what are we
needed
talking
5
about
minutes
here,
to
guys?
not make the decision is what they needed. They needed all that time to figure out
Yes,
how to not
to
call
find
it,
a way to
basically.
not make that
Yeah,
decision. You could
yeah.
see that a penalty, they were reluctant to even want to give a penalty, right?
Mhm.
And they didn't want to send Nathan Collins off. Now, if you're Ruben Amorim in that moment, you're 2-0 down, you're back to 2-1, 70th minute, your captain has a penalty, and the other team should have a player sent off. I think he's entitled to expect that his team gets back in the game here and has
Yep.
a strong loss. What happened next? You know, it's not Amorim's fault that Bruno Fernandes missed a penalty. It's not Amorim's fault that that player didn't get sent off. There's lots of things that we can pick apart for me in that game that really concern me. But he's had, Fernandes' other penalty miss. He's had key moments where
Big
players
ones,
have
yeah.
let him down too, James.
I know, and that's what gets kind of depressing, because I think people are absolutely fooling themselves blind. They think doesn't mean you shouldn't change managers, because I understand sunk cost and things like that too. But they are fooling themselves blind. You think someone else is going to come in and suddenly that's going to turn around. We've all fooled ourselves way too many times on that. Dallo doesn't stop doing what Dallo does every single game when a new manager comes in. Maguire can't suddenly play a high line. Bayindier's not going to become a better keeper. And Bruno's focus has nothing to do with the manager. Bruno missing penalties has nothing to do with the manager. It doesn't matter what position he's in. You're the captain in those moments. It's up to you and nobody else. Okay. And it's like those things are not going to, I'm not saying it's just those guys, right? There's plenty of other issues and problems and things. But you know who these guys are. They've been the same people for a long, long time. They've been the same players for a long time. Obviously, there's been a lot of turnover, so I'm not saying, it's the same guys getting people sacked and all that. But I think people will always attribute too much positively and negatively to the manager when things are going on. Right now, Ruben Amorim's not getting a team to win games. That's a problem. At the end of the day, results business. You're not winning games, period. The things that go on individually you can't exculpate them from the responsibility for those actions either. And that's why I feel almost somewhat hopeless about it. It's not a defense of the manager, but it's like, how is this still happening? How, I've said once before, because we talk about this, these 5:30 a.m. games, 4:30 a.m. for you, and I say, during those, all I'm asking is that it doesn't look like that. That it looks like, they're the ones that just woke up at 5:30 a.m. sluggishly. And that's what they look like. Every time we have one of those games, I wake up that early, I go down and look, and what makes me so angry, and it's been years of this, and they look like they're sleepwalking. Where was the intensity? Where was the energy from the kickoff? Where was the pressing? Where was even against they did bring it against Chelsea in the first 5 minutes. It created that red. That wasn't there against Brentford. I don't understand how it's possible, and it's so frustrating. You have one game a week. You have all of these advantages. How can you not show up to the game and work harder than the opposition? Because for me, that's still number one.
I mean,
That's still the baseline.
Yeah, you bring up a point there, James. It's very important. The injured party here is the United fans that had to get to
Yes.
London for that early game, and then
Yes.
you put that performance in.
Yeah.
And I look at this, and this is really, really worrying, James, because to me, maybe 50-60% of United's problems are psychological.
Yeah. I agree.
Players are better than what they're showing.
100%.
And the thing is that there's a very powerful narrative now in the media that this is all a derivative of the system. Players will take that excuse if you give it to them.
Oh, 100%.
So now players are saying it's not us that's losing, it's you, it's your methods. And there gets to a point where, I mean, for Amorim, James, it's hard to make a case for him.
Yeah, can't.
I mean, and I agree with you that I don't think if Amorim had taken the City job or the Liverpool job, I don't think he'd be in this position, right?
Nope.
So I do think some of this is obviously United's fault, but with that track record that he has, that track record is getting you sacked at any club across Europe, and nobody would bat an eyelid. And when you look at his track record, he's played it's 33 games, Premier League games. So, that's 5 shy of a full season. That's a significant body of work to be able to make
Yep.
an assessment. And it's every single week we're deferring happiness to something, that's in the future that, okay, we
Yep.
can accept 16th. We can accept, not qualifying for Europe. We can accept losing the Europa League. We can accept going out to Grimsby. For what though?
Yeah. Where's the
You have to
payoff?
give me something back. That as of right now, he's been very well supported by the fans. The
Yep.
club supported him. He's spent significant amount of money. This just can't be the end product. What I'm concerned about, James, is there is something in the walls at United that is deeply concerning. Alexis Sanchez, I want to leave after the first day. Just look at the litany of players that have been desperate to leave. And not just I want to try a new challenge, they're psychologically broken. What is going on inside that football club?
Yeah, I really don't understand it. And obviously, there's been a lot of turnover, and that is the part that is depressing. Is that with all the turnover, all the changes, all
Yeah.
the things that have happened, it's like the end result is the same
Mhm.
or even worse. And I go, how is this possible? Like, how is there's something everyone is missing that I just can't explain, and that just doesn't make any sense because, no matter what, like we've said before, like no matter what, it shouldn't be this bad. When you look at the players that are there, the personnel that are there, the people that are there, the jobs they've had, the success they've had, fine, it's at different places, all that. It shouldn't be this bad. And each manager that comes in and each new cycle that starts, it starts to look worse and worse and worse. And you start to go, this is making less and less sense every time.
Let me ask you a question on that. Do you believe after the Carabao Cup final in Ten Hag's first season, you can really start drawing a straight line
Yeah,
from there in the decline?
100%. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. And I just want to mention on that front, ultimately Tanag has a much better win rate than Amram, but it was in steep decline
it,
essentially, which is why he
James,
lost. But yeah.
something
Yes.
else happened that month, and that was the
Yeah.
month that the strategic review the club was put up for sale happened.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think since then, United have been an almost unmanageable football club because
Sure.
what happened after that was, the Glazers, turned around and put United on life support, deprived
Yes.
the football club of key investment, and everything at that point was commoditized. And
Yep.
it wasn't really about, we don't care if we're in the league 2, 3 years from now. We just want to get this football club sold. That's why they kept a hold of Mason Greenwood, because they didn't want to write off the asset,
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
And so, and obviously, in comes Ineos. They got the whole football club. Everything since the Carabao Cup final has been about business. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
rip out the morale of a football club when you replace staff. But at a business where you have a very clear definition of success, that's fine. You can get away with that. But at a football club where you can't scale things like camaraderie, you can't scale things
Hmm.
like the environment, and this is a massive problem for any of us. That if you're a manager now, James, you better be interviewing United as much as they're interviewing you. And we're sitting here a year, almost a year in with their new manager, and there's nothing when you're watching it, particularly nascent from what Amarim's tried to with the system. There's just nothing there.
Yeah, and look, it's rough, and I think what you're saying there has merit. I mean, obviously beforehand, United weren't particularly successful under the Glazers post Sir Alex, but at a different
Mm-hmm.
sort of shaking along level that was higher, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
problem is that while that was happening, they were financially driving the club deeper into ruin and to keep it at this like acceptable level. You know what I'm saying? This like sometimes Champions League team level, but
Mm-hmm.
the investment, I shouldn't really call it investment because it was an investment, but the debt accumulation, the credit line, it used to have
Mm-hmm.
cash reserves and now it was
Yeah.
in debt, and it used to be at least breaking even and now it's losing hundreds of millions per year, meant that when that happened, Ineos come in, they have to pretty much, like you said, gut the club to stop the bleeding. And that does
Mm-hmm.
make it worse in the short term. How long is that short term? I don't know. But apparently we're still in it because It's not better,
Yeah.
and I think they had to do some of, I do think obviously from a business standpoint, they had to do some of this stuff. Last
Mhm.
season there was more more redundancies, obviously. Well, if United didn't do that, couldn't buy players, that wasn't going to help. There's a no-win situation kind of there loading, but it has been chaos. I mean, it has been
Mhm.
chaotic. It has been, if you were working in that business, regardless of the
Mhm.
reasons who's to blame for it, which is the Glazers ultimately, it's a really bad environment to work in. And obviously that's going to affect everybody all the way down to the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, James, that affects the atmosphere inside the football club. The milieu that a player has outside of the football club. They're all related, and you're looking at. I mean, I know people are not going to give me any credit for this point because I'm clearly biased. But when you look at someone like Marcus Rashford, James,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, you look at players that are getting away from United, getting out of that environment and flourishing and looking like top class players. We Why does everyone come to die at United?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? And I'm looking at everything that Amorim has done, James. He's inexperienced. I think he's mishandled a number of things that he could have handled better sometimes in the media. I'm forgiven for some of that stuff, but I think, I do think you could have handled the Rashford thing completely better.
Yep. I do. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and the football club, should be repudiating heavily when you get colloquialisms like the bomb squad of that's what you're going to allow your players to be, your employees. Like, think about this if this is your employer, right? Think about if it's your employer who is acquiescing with outlets who are driving a sustained campaign of abuse against you. I mean, what would that do to your relationship
Yep.
with that employer?
Yep.
And you look, Kobe Mainoo's wanted out. One of the only bright sparks that United have had, and and he's a casualty to Amorim's system. I'm going. I just see negatives. I want to believe in you. The
Mm-hmm.
football club is not being run particularly well. The business might be, but I think the football club is. And this
Yeah.
experiment, whatever we're doing on the pitch, James, this this is serious. Like,
Yeah.
this is not an accident. And if there is an intervention soon, all you're going to have, James, is players desperate to get to January so they can bail.
Yeah, which is worrying as well. And
Mhm.
look, I agree with you. And it's like there's a lot of things that, in terms of talks and stuff like that don't add up, that bother me, that I think Ruben Amorim does ultimately have to be culpable for at the end of it as well. Like you take, for example, the Kobe Manu situation.
Mhm.
Obviously, he doesn't want to leave United technically. He wants to play. There's a World Cup year. He wants to play. He's a good footballer. He's an England international, and he doesn't have a place right now. He's not playing on a regular basis. He's obviously capable of playing. And I
Yeah.
look at things like Ruben Amorim talking about how, well, he has to compete with Bruno. Again, even if that were true, and without giving a huge hard time to Bruno's undroppable for you. So how's that fair? Like, I've been, it's like, I'm not saying it's the same situation, but I've been in situations where the coach's son is the guy you're competing
Mhm.
with for that position. You're never getting in that position. They can say whatever the hell they want. It's not happening. Now, I'm
I
not
know.
claiming it's nepotism. They're not family, but it's like Bruno's had bad games and he doesn't. I'm not even. I'm not. I think every player, for their benefit, sometimes need to be subbed off, rotated, things like that, at times. But it's like when you look at it from the outside, you go, well, it's not fair. Like, this doesn't
Mhm.
work. We talked under Ten Hag. One of the complaints I had that I think was fair as a complaint that I'm seeing again now is people not understanding what it requires to win, to be the guy, to earn their place. I take Lenny Yoro, for example. Makes maybe a mistake versus City, arguably, and he gets benched.
Mhm.
I've watched Luke Shaw put in 5 out of 6 bad games this season, and he's playing every week. Where's Aiden Heaven?
Right.
I've watched Dowlow do what Dowlow does for years. Where's one of the youth players to step up into that position? I'll even say that Manuel Ugarte, who hasn't been good, always gets subbed no matter what happens, but a lot of other players won't. And it's
Well,
like, where's the The standards are different for different players, and that breeds a bad culture as well. And I think that Ruben is very culpable for that.
Well, one of the consolations we had with Ten Hag, James, was he was playing young players. You know, he was the one that brought Garnacho through. He brought Xavi Manu.
I agree with that. Yeah.
In fact, one of the best games we saw Xavi Manu play was in the midfield with Bruno Fernandes in the cup final against City.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sitting here going, okay, you're asking us to sacrifice a lot. Okay, things that you know, are valuable to United fans. You know, we're no more wingers. Okay, we're willing to give you that rope, but you have to give me something back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a horrendous experience to watch Manchester United and be a Manchester United fan. I'm watching other teams on the weekend, James, right? And it's excruciating because I'm like, these United are a million miles away from this. But I was reading a statistic there earlier that Adam Crafton tweeted. Sorry, let me pull up my phone. Since February 2024, Man United have failed to win 40 of 57 Premier League games. That is astonishing. 0.29% win percentage, average 1.14 points per game across exactly 1.5 seasons. Brighton, Everton, and Villa, only current Premier League teams United have beaten by more than one goal margin in that time. Mate,
so I think what has he done? He split that half Ten Hag, half Amorim.
Yeah, well, February 2024 was whenever that was when Ineos came in, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And that's when they officially started.
Right. So I mean, I'm not just blaming that on one. We extrapolate that out. You know, you zoom out on that team. That is
it's bad.
Ineos have Jim Ratcliffe could sit there and talk in interviews about the state of the IT room, or about certain standards and what have you. But I'm sorry, you and your team need to take responsibility here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it hasn't turned around.
This should be a total embarrassment.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, again, I can understand it being bad in the beginning, when you are tearing things up and all that. But when is the turnaround happening? Because I understand the actions that they took. I think they make sense. But there has to be a payoff at the end of that. And I'm sitting here going,
well,
when is that coming, man? I don't.
Amorim lost to a guy at the weekend, brand new Premier League manager, right? When you look at people like Glasner, it's very difficult to defend Amorim. Look, if we were sitting in 5th or 6th, we're okay. They're still going to lose games of football, but 3 games out of 4, they're going to be able to look you in the eye.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. We no United fans expecting perfection, but when you look at United, look like forgive me for this sort of cross comparison, but almost like a relapsing drug addict, right?
Yeah.
So you have this day where everything's great, where you're optimistic about the future, and then after 2 days, we're back to square one. Yeah. And this is, and I say that with the utmost sensitivity, as everyone knows my own background, right? But I look at this, and this is really every win that Amorim's had never resulted in any type of change, any type of momentum. It almost looked like an anomaly, like an outlier. And I'm looking at this going, every single Premier League fixture scares me.
Yeah.
Like people, we have a tough start. We can get somebody. I'm sorry, I don't trust Manchester United to win any football game, and they tried their best to lose that Chelsea game.
Yeah, I mean, the Brentford one, to me, that why it's so meaningful from my perspective and my faith in the team and hope and all of that is that I can buy things like that. It was a tough start. You had Chelsea, Arsenal, City in the front, and you beat the last game against Chelsea, you win. Doesn't matter how you got the win, okay? I can look at that and say, all right, you've come out of that okay. If you'd win against Brentford, you end that game in the top 4 if you had won against Brentford. That's all you have to do is win against Brentford, a team that was in 16th. One of the, we took their best player this summer. They lost their manager to Tottenham.
All I have to do is not lose it.
No, I know. And then
you're right, though.
And then you can't. And it's like, well, then it's all meaningless. The tough start, it's meaningless because it doesn't matter who our opposition is. I think that's the part that really, really bothers me. It has nothing to do now with our opposition. It has nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. It's still purely a United team because a team that's building something can be good and they'll face tougher and weaker, and they'll
Mhm.
fluctuate based on that. We don't fluctuate based on who the opponent is. It's all internal. We haven't even crossed that bridge of being like we're consistent and we're just not good enough yet to beat some teams. We haven't got to that point. We're not even close to that point. United beat themselves. The opposition doesn't matter. They're either going to show up, they're either going to play, they're either going to do something or they're not. They're consistently bad, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying the opposition doesn't matter in terms of whether
No.
last year even we beat City away, beat Arsenal away in the cup. One of the best performances of the season was against Liverpool away, drew against Arsenal and City at home again, did really well in those games, but then would just have catastrophes against the worst teams. And it's like, it doesn't matter who our opposition is. And
Yeah.
it's United. You don't know what to think.
In some sense, James, in a weird way, that to me is almost a defense of Ruben Amorim, because
Sure.
if your players are showing up in big games, right, and then going out against Grimsby that's mental. That's the players. That's got nothing
I
to
do
do with
think it is
Amorim.
mental to a
Yeah.
large degree, mind you. Yeah.
And United to me always look like a team that are looking for a threshold of, we want to find the minimum amount of effort required to win a game. We don't want to expend an extra piece
Yeah.
that we don't
Yeah.
have to. And it looks like to me you have players who have deferred responsibility. It's not my fault. It's their fault. It's this fault. It's the system's fault. It's Amaring's fault. It's it's the winger's fault. It's this, and you see this. We've talked about this before. When United concede a goal, how little accountability or anyone remonstrating with each other or holding other. It's just
There's no
here
communication.
we go
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And you just look at the whole deflation. There's no one standing up in there and saying, no, I don't care what my relationship's like with my employer. I don't care if I hate this, I'm going to show up and give. There's a couple of players that give you that, I think, but most of them have been on this treadmill for so long that they have. I mean, James, whatever we say about Amorim, I'm sorry, but those players are way too comfortable with losing.
Oh yeah.
And it just doesn't offend them. We're talking Real Madrid lose at the weekend. You're talking about Xabi Alonso under pressure, funeral, and everything. But the United, they don't. Brentford. I mean, the sad part about it is you play that fixture 10 times. That's the result. Now.
I know. Well, it was really interesting to me that the Real Madrid comparison too, because I was looking at some of the analysis of it, and it is kind of funny. And it's just one of the things I disagree with in modern trends. There's the Athletic have different articles and pieces. The article on Real Madrid says that Xabi Alonso needs to understand that the basics of intensity, fight, and showing up and matching their aggression have to be done before tactics and technical quality can be on display. And on United, it's all tactical analysis. And I'm going, hold on a second. You've missed the point. They got it at Madrid. That fundamental always has to be there. And then the technical and the tactical can show up on top of that. We still don't have the fundamental week to week ever.
Yeah.
Like the fundamental is not there. The baseline is not there for United at all.
Yeah, look, if you want to bring in the intangibles, the things that before you talk about budget differences or quality differences, if I think it was Patton that once said, a bad battle plan executed with gusto is far more valuable than a good battle plan not executed with intensity. And so if you're not willing to match intensity, aggression, will to win, these are things that you don't see in your sports on analytics or whatever. Then tactics are irrelevant. These are because it does not matter. And so forget about what system you play. If you don't bring that, okay, you're going to lose. That's as simple as that. And you don't. And that's the part that's unforgivable for me, James. Right? I mean, I don't care what your relationship's like, United. I don't care what goes on behind the scenes. Right? I mean, to me, you go on the field, you either leave the football club, right, or you give 100%. And I know people are going to bring up other examples. And look, once I see a player that's not committed to the football club mentally and psychologically, there's only one place for that player to go. They have to leave. But to me, James, if I'm Manchester United, I want to ask, why is it that every 99% of the people that come here are delighted to be here, but happier to leave. What is going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I want to make it very, very clear as well, in that respect. Again, I don't pass off responsibility to anyone in these types of
Mm,
things. My view of a manager is that is their primary job, is to resolve those things and notice when it's not happening with players, have standards for it, have
mhm.
consequences,
Yes,
accountability, all
sure.
those sorts of things. I think those things are, if you can't overlay tactics, formation, systems
Mhm,
on top of those things missing. You cannot. If you don't address those things and actually deal with them, you've already lost and you've already failed. It doesn't matter what
mhm,
you play on top of that.
mm.
20 different teams in the Premier League play 20 different systems. All of them can beat Manchester United on a given day if they apply some application and some all of that. Sunderland don't have the highest quality team. They're in third at the moment, I think, or fourth or something like that. I'm not saying they'll end up there, but they are there if you watch them because they have put in the utmost of effort, energy, intensity,
Yeah.
and belief into going into the season. They really wanted it. And I know it's boring to get into those platitudes and things like that, but they do matter. They do mean something. And they can be overlooked. So much of life and so much of anything competitive is mental. Like you've said many times, you talk to people in pro sports, the difference technically, the difference quality wise between players at Premier League level, first tier, second tier, third tier, fourth tier is a
Mhm,
lot smaller than people believe.
mhm.
That's why teams like Grimsby can go and beat teams like United. That's like it can happen on any given day because it's mostly mental. It's mostly mental, circumstantial, these types of things that happen. And I had the complaint under Amram, and I have the same under Ten Hag rather, but I have the exact same complaint under Amram. Now it may be bigger, but I see a real failure to address that, and I think it is bigger, obviously, than that. But I do see a real
Mm.
failure to address this point. Uh,
I
Players
think,
can make mistakes for me, but they
yeah.
can't sleepwalk in games. I just don't understand it.
So to me, James, I agree 100%. Where I might slightly defend Amarim is what's his alternative? So
Yeah, yeah.
the
Well, you
consequences,
could play young players, and I would feel better,
yeah,
I guess, is what I'm
sure,
saying, you
sure.
know?
Yeah, that's Pep Guardiola's alternative is, he gets 180 million in January. Some of those players don't work out, goes out in the
Yeah,
summer
I know.
and gets key players. Ruben
Yeah,
Amorim, right, is sitting here. Don't move for a goalkeeper until after Arsenal, which is just defies belief to me for what was such an obvious issue. And go after Baleba, then decide we're not going to go after him. Which to me, like if you're going after a player, you're going to spend 110, 15 million,
yep,
and then you clearly have an obvious and immediate need.
yep.
So, you know, deferring that again to January, to me, this is where Amorim needs to be stronger and say, no, I need that player right now. But,
Yeah,
in Amorim's slight defense, he doesn't have a ton of alternatives. But like, look at Florian Wirtz, right? If Florian Wirtz was playing for United, he would be getting absolutely tore to pieces. But he's getting away with this because Liverpool are winning games of football. Now, I know
yeah,
they lost the weekend, but when you're winning games of football, you can hide bad runs of form at a big football club. When you're
yep.
not, the focus, the pendulum swings so heavy, the darkness and negativity, every idol, every legend of United coming out and questioning your integrity, questioning your professionalism. I mean, I don't know how that environment produces anything positive. And sorry to less loquacious, but at Brighton and other football clubs, when they lose 3 or 4 games, they it's not the end of the world. They can recover. Their environment internally doesn't go to pieces. At United, it's the end of the world, and it's really worrying.
Yeah, it is, and I think that part of that is why, I've always felt that each time we look, and I'm not getting too far into it, but each time we look at a change of managers, every single time, I always look at it and go, we really should get somebody with top club and Premier League
Mhm.
experience as a manager because otherwise they're gonna come in bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go with their new ideas, with all the things, with their accomplishments, and whether it's at Ajax or whether it's at Sporting or whether it's at one of these other club or it'll be at Bournemouth or Crystal Palace, and then they'll get to the club like United, and it's going to be the shock of a lifetime when they deal with it. if they haven't dealt with that at a serious club before, a big club. And there's not that many like United in any case. I mean, it's hard to even approach that level. I think there are comparables, at least similar level of experience, because I think it can hurt you and it can pressure you. And I think that, again, once you've hit that pressure, you start to make, if you don't know how to deal with it, if you're not experienced with it, it starts to weigh on you. People make more mistakes under pressure, not less. They make more mistakes when they're under pressure. They start to get things even more wrong, and they get squashed by it entirely and pushed down into tiny pieces. And that's what happens to a lot of them. We've seen it with practically every manager. They get more and more desperate or more and more fixated on something, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and they make more and more mistakes, and then that's the end of it. But because it is so huge, and I, whether that's all internal or whether that's just the reality of United being the size, the scope of it is, the way that the media deals with it, everything. I mean, again, even the refereeing, you look at it, you're not getting calls in favor of United because you're United. You're going to fight these advantages that other teams have, these disadvantages every single day. Can you deal with it or not? I don't think everybody can. And I think that we can pick as many, I'm not saying, anyway, like I said, I didn't want to get too far into like talking about new managers and things, because I just don't want to do it at the moment.
The point there that I wanted to just, it's a sequitur, but whenever Mark Clattenburg was doing an interview the other day, he was talking about Adam Lallana, and he was saying, when Lallana abused him, and he 100% should have sent him off. And he goes, but then I started thinking about this, and started thinking about that, started thinking all these externalities that have nothing to do with the decision. Yep. So now you adjudicate this decision based on what was my relationship like with the manager, what because he was saying that I knew the media, the press would tear me apart. No, I'm like, see, this is the problem with these 5-minute decisions.
Yep.
And this is exactly what will be forcing everyone. Like, well, they got the penalty if we send him off, and the media will go mental. I can't say for sure that's exactly what he was thinking, but that's exactly what any.
Well, I think it takes 4 or 5 minutes to figure out we don't want to send him off. Like, so what explanation is can we figure out that's even slightly plausible,
Well, if you or I were in that situation, to be fair, we'd be doing the same thing. That's just human nature, right? Yeah. So now you're considering all these details that have nothing to do with the decision. And to me, I know football fans all say this, but if that's Liverpool, Collins is sent off without 100%. Any fear, of retribution or in the media or anything else. But nonetheless, that's not the reason why United lost that game. And this is, James, we were told being out of Europe will be a positive because it's going to give Emery more time on the training pitch. We were told that, if we don't change now, we'll be in exactly the same position we were in a year. We were told in the summer that, the bright meadows are ahead, that the pain is almost up. James, where do we go here? Like, to me, I don't know how much longer any of us can justify, or any of us sticking with their decision because they believe in Amorim or because they are defending their own decision to hire him.
Yeah, I know. And look, I don't think, I mean, I don't know who, right? Obviously, it's hard when you look at like who and splitting hairs on who's doing what, because the question starts to become like, well, whose decision should it be at the end of it? You know what I'm saying? How deep, how far do you want Sir Jim to get involved? Because one of the views that I have, for example, is like, if Sir Jim has to step in, it really, really, really makes it bad for the people he has to step over. You know what I mean? Like, because then it means he's not stepping in, he's stepping over Omar Barada, stepping over Jason Wilcox, stepping over these guys. If he has to step in and say it's time to replace the manager, that's what they're hired for, is to make these kinds of calls and things like that. But to be fair, like, they're hired to make the call right now and say, look, is it time to replace him? Do you actually think it's going to turn around? They have to make, and based on them making the call correctly or not, in terms of the outcome, pretty much should determine their position on the job. That's usually what you hire people for. But
yeah, this is where it gets a bit tricky, James, because now I'm wondering, is Barada making the decision that he thinks Ratcliffe wants, or the one that he believes? Because none of this reflects well on him. Dan Ashworth now looks exceptionally prescient with time, but Barada was one of the ones that pushed for the Amorim appointment, and Ashworth wanted someone with Premier League experience. I'm not saying that he would have made the right choice either, but now I'm asking two questions. One, if this is your football department's decision and Jim Ratcliffe shouldn't get involved at all, right? If at the end of the season they haven't met their goals, then fine.
I mean, from the standpoint of the owner should be setting standards, you know what I mean? Yeah, but they should be setting standards, right? Like the owner should be saying, look, this isn't good enough, so what are you going to do about it? Is more the question, right?
Well, to me, the question is, this isn't good enough. What are you going to do about it? If your answer is, I'm going to stick with the guy I hired, that's fine. But if you don't meet your goals, you go with
You got to go too. Yes, correct. And I agree with that. That's how I see Jim Ratcliffe should be approaching this. Is to say, look, it is your call, but you're going to be judged based on the outcome. If it works, you look like a genius. If it doesn't, you're going to go too, because this is a big call to make.
Given the way he sacked Ashworth, James, is it really their call, or is Ratcliffe making this call?
I think. Well, I mean, I think that's somewhat true of any business. You know what I mean? When you're talking about an owner versus like a CEO type of decision, the owner is always going to end up, to a degree, making a call if they have any interest at all, because they're going to at some point step in and say, look, this cannot continue. And someone's going to say, yeah, okay, fine, we got to do something about it. And they're going to have to, because otherwise they're going to go too. Now, I have seen instances where, well, I guess I don't know. I honestly don't know. Does it matter? I guess. I mean, at the end of the day, like, Jim Ratcliffe's not necessarily qualified for it, but you also do want an owner taking an interest in a way, right?
I want them to take an interest, but I don't think they should be like, to me, this is a bit like Barada leaning on Amorim to say, hey,
I don't want that.
Pick that player.
Yeah,
we're going to get
correct. You don't want him to do that. Otherwise, you should have sacked him in the first. You should be sacking him already. Yeah.
So all we're going to judge you on is the end result, right? We're not going to get involved in the decisions that you made.
How you got to that result. Yeah.
How you bake the cake's up to you. But I think I understand what you're saying, where that's in a perfect world. But if you're an owner, and you don't see, you have maybe you're not going to be involved in picking the next manager because you don't have the expertise to do that. But maybe you feel like, hey, I have a duty to act here because I am not comfortable with this continuing, and I disagree with my.
Well, if you think about performance, right? Like, if it was a business, what would the performance on the pitch equate to? The business is losing money. The owner's looking at it saying, hey, my business is losing money. It's starting to fail. It's headed towards bankruptcy. So they'd have to step and say, look, you either have to fix this or I'm going to have to replace you with someone who can, at that point in time, or step in myself. Now, in a business, usually the owner has a little more like knowledge of the technical aspects of it, but it is complicated, because it's like there's a point where if Sir Jim has to tell them to sack him, then he basically has to sack them too. If he has to tell them to do that specifically and explicitly, then it becomes a problem. And they have a big. I mean, I think this is where they have a big call to make on this front. Like, Omar Barada has to. I think mostly him, in terms of as the person running this, he is a football guy, has to stop right now and say, okay, today, do I actually believe this is going to turn around or not? Because if he actually believes it's going to turn around, he can't sack him, because then he's already compromised on anything and he's just doing it for the sake of the pressure from the owner. He can't do that, or he's also failed in the job, unless he doesn't believe it's going to turn around. And if he doesn't, then he's got to make a change quickly. But he also has to make sure he's separating himself from it. I mean, this is why it's a tough job and why you have to be qualified, and why, it's tough, but you have to get it right. You also have to separate yourself out and say, look, you are allowed to have made one wrong manager appointment. It happens at every club. It happens. Madrid have
Yeah,
made
I
plenty of
mean,
bad manager appointments,
right.
and you just have to be able to separate yourself from that and say, okay, am I keeping him because I actually believe it? Am I keeping him because I believed in him in the past? And it's hard to separate those thoughts out. You
Well,
have to separate that.
in US's defence, James, they've been there 12 months. United
Yeah.
are, what, 147 years old. I've said this
Yeah.
before. They've had
Yeah.
two managers. I mean, they've had successful managers outside of Ferguson and Busby, but two
Not that
managers
many.
of that level,
Yeah.
right? It's hard to get it right.
Yeah.
And, the football clubs this size, James, managers can't be successful on their own. They need to have highly
Yeah.
competent people with synergy in all different departments. That then you all the stars align, and then of course you end up getting something where you can be successful and consistently successful. City threw a lot of money at it behind the scenes too to finally get it right. I mean, the number of staff that City have is absolutely incredible. But with United, this is the first time they've found themselves in a situation where they need to be successful on the pitch to generate revenue off it. And that's turning that tanker around, James, and changing that culture. I don't think that completely changes until we get rid of the Glazers. And but
Sure.
even then, I'm not certain that it would, Jim Ratcliffe would run it as a football club. One or two other things not related to the game. United signed Vivell had signed young Orozco, Colombian kid,
Yep.
and Dabo. If I have that correctly, I had my notes here and I can't find where I wrote it down. But so they are, along with the commitment that United are heavily focusing on, the same market, the Brighton and Leipzig,
Yeah.
Salzburg. We're looking, and these are encouraging young signings because I think that we've seen that they've worked out in the past, and this is exactly what Manchester United need to be doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say, and also the new academy director, Stephen Torpy,
Mhm,
who comes from
mhm,
Brentford, of course,
mhm,
ironically, started as well in this week. United won,
mhm,
the under-21s won a big game as well at Old Trafford there. So no, yeah, they're doing those
mhm.
things well, which is very encouraging, and it continues to be a bright spot in the area. Fletcher seems to be doing a really great job with the under 18s and there, and there's a lot of things that seem to be going right from a youth standpoint. It is very encouraging to see them bringing in, young players from these different markets, players we wouldn't be signing before, planning ahead, starting to build up like that treadmill that you want that comes from the academy into the first team where it's probably been it's not been terrible, but it could be a lot better and there could be a lot more investment in it. So that is encouraging to see. These are things that are known quantities that improve you in the future, that provide you with players. We've been bailed out so many times in the last 10 years by the fact that we have had some academy players, almost by accident. You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine? It sort of lets the Glazers off the hook a little bit. The fact that you've gotten to, for free, have players like Marcus Rashford come through the academy after they paid no attention to the academy.
Mhm.
And those things happened that helped you and provided you with key players over the years. So, it's good that we're working on it and investing in it for sure.
Yeah, look, one of the things that I love about supporting Manchester United is there always has been a pathway through from
Yep.
the youth team into the first team. And for me, one of the most satisfying things as a fan is to see a young kid come from the academy, play for the first team, and score on their debut or show promise. That's,
Yep.
I mean, United. To be fair to United, you're right in the sense that the Glazers neglected it, but they've always had quality coaches at that level, and of course,
Yep.
the Manchester United as a football club, are synonymous with this. This is another maybe criticism of Amorim, where I feel like, he's missed some open goals where integrate some players into the first team from the kids. I mean, give United fans something to believe in for the future.
United
And
fans will accept inconsistency from youth. They will.
yeah, yeah, that
But we're losing anyway, so it's
yeah.
like, why not at least do something building for the future? Losing with Luke, I'm not trying to pick on too many individuals, but like losing games with Shaw, Maguire, Dallo, even Bruno, Casemiro, Bayindir. What's the future in that? There is a future if you get some of these young players integrated, playing, getting chances, experiences, and see more of them. There's something to look forward to. United fans can have time for that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think when that's one of the things I was thought we would get with Amorim,
Yeah, me
considering his
too. Yeah.
background with Sporting.
Yeah.
I think it's this is something, James, that and then we say who comes next. If we go, Xavi's been one of the ones that has been touted. Xavi doesn't have Premier League experience, but he has massive club experience where he was at Barcelona, where you had chaos behind the scenes. He was forced to bring through young players, whether he had no choice in the matter. I was someone that was keen on Xavi before, and I know that there's people who know much more about him than I do, who watch the Liga and know much more about Barcelona than I do, who have not agreed with that assessment. But I, I would, if we were going to go from Amorim to someone, I would much prefer Xavi than Gareth Southgate.
Oh, I would prefer that too. My biggest concern with Xavi is, in the end, he really, really struggled with the pressure of Barcelona.
He won the league,
Personally,
didn't he?
I know, he did. I'm not saying he wasn't successful in that sense, but if you kind of follow a lot of it, he struggled quite a lot with the pressure when things started to get tough.
Mm.
Barcelona, despite the chaos, still have it's different. It's still different in La Liga being Barcelona than it is at United in the
Well,
Premier League.
when
And
Guardiola
if you
left
struggle with the
Barcelona,
pressure there, it's
but James, when Guardiola left Barcelona, he said 3 years of Barcelona is a lifetime. I couldn't take it any longer. So I don't
the
know.
pressure side, no doubt. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
That wouldn't be a concern for me because as a player, he handled it. As a manager, I don't know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
um,
But I
yeah, I
thought that
mean,
was also maybe part of it. Even then,
mm,
he was a former
so,
player. You know what I mean? So he at least had that going for him. That keeps a little bit of the fans off your back when things get tough and at times. But I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not going to say that I know better or worse on any of this, but I'm still hoping for the Premier League. I still think it's a totally different animal to any of these other leagues. You'll never deal with a more competitive league, top to bottom, physically,
that's
all of that.
mythical.
You think so?
Honestly,
I
I
really
think it has
don't.
competitive
Like even
balance.
if you look at the financial gap in the England versus
Yeah,
any of the other leagues, it's like a straight line instead of this huge sweeping curve where
Jim, think about this. It wasn't that difficult for Arne Slot.
yeah, but
Areola
it
comes
was a
in.
successful
Areola
team,
comes in, and he's completely revitalizes Bournemouth. You know, we Klopp wasn't that difficult for him. There's lots of managers that come from abroad that are exceptional managers. Premier League has more competitive balance, but I think it was the last round of Champions League fixtures out of the 6 English teams, one of them got a win. So I mean, to me, like there's this myth about the Premier League being, football from a different, hemisphere. It's not the same football that we're playing. It's competitive, it's fast, it's athletic, but
I
to
think
me, like there's nothing that the Premier League could show someone like Xavi where he wouldn't. Where this is football from another
I,
universe.
I
Like
don't I don't think it's that.
I don't,
I think it's more like you're not getting any games off in the Premier League. You do 100% get games off in La Liga. The bottom five teams compared to the bottom five in the Premier League is like a joke in terms of quality. Like you look at Sunderland, you look at some of these teams that how they play. They're the teams that outside of a fair few. There's been some really bad ones like Southampton in recent times. You get games off in these other leagues. You just do. Every year there's going to be 5, 6 teams you barely even have to think about that you can sleepwalk through.
yeah,
I don't think you can get away with that in England, and it requires just such a different focus week in and week out, in my opinion, from what I've watched at many clubs. And I think that teams can adapt to it, clubs can adapt to it, managers can adapt to it. But if you have to adapt to that on top of everything else that's going on at United in particular, I think it really, really hurts, you know?
Yeah, United. Yeah, I agree that it's there's nothing analogous to Real Madrid because there's just even Barcelona and the stability they have now, despite the chaos
Yeah.
behind the scenes. United make the job as difficult as possible. If he failed, it would be for the same reason that everyone else failed. If we're talking about football, I don't think Xavi would have a difficulty adapting to 38 competitive games a season. I don't. United might have. Which would he have the I don't know, James. Maybe there's no one out there has the mental resilience to deal with
I don't know, man.
yeah. I mean, seriously, like
Because
I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to crowbar the words from my mouth about wanting new managers and stuff because I'm just so sick and tired of the same cycle. But James, this is a horrible football club to support right now, and it's been
Yeah,
that way
I
for
know.
a year. It's just like it's not just losing games; it's infuriating, and where you're watching a soulless entity that I feel like they lost their identity because anything that was worth something they commoditized and sold, and now they're trying to give CPR to this massive giant, and it just looks like it swallows everyone up. And I'm thinking, we need to wake the fuck up. United are in a relegation
Uh-huh.
fight. They are in a relegation. They that team for 38 games. If we stick with what we're sticking with right now, there's no way United won't be in a bottom three fight. But I think it could change if they bring in someone quickly. And um, they James, they have to get that football club going in a completely different direction because
For
it's
sure.
farcical how dark it is.
Yeah.
It's every week it's the same, it's the same
And,
experience.
and that's where I look at it and I'm like, I look at it from a manager perspective and I think I know how difficult it is, like for all the reasons we've talked about. And I look at that and I'm like, the number of people that I honestly think could handle it or have dealt with something maybe similar is so small. It's so small to non-existent. Like I look at it and I think I've, I'm never, ever, ever, by the way, Phil, beating the Liverpool allegations here. But I look at it and I'm like,
The
if
other
you had to,
allegations that
if you, I know, I know, and if, if you had to name a manager that I think would have the best chance of succeeding based on what they've done, it would be Jurgen Klopp because I think he's done something similar at Liverpool after a long period of failure. He brings a culture, a strength, and experience. Is it going to happen? Of course not. Will people support it? Probably not. But I'm like, it's not a chance. But what I'm saying with that example is
Klopp,
like,
I would take him in a heartbeat. I'd say
well, I
no
think
problem. I wouldn't be
you'd
a
have to tell some
pretentious
people,
man.
but at this point, maybe not. But no, but I look at it, I'm like, that's kind of very few managers have done what he did with Liverpool in terms of turning around a team that had been bad for a
Mate,
long time, and implementing a real. He did. I know people hate it. He did implement a real culture at Liverpool. He did
yes. Well, I think he would have failed at United because
at that time. I think he would have too.
because
Yes.
United would
Yeah.
not have had the support behind him that
Hmm.
he needed. Liverpool had a
Yeah.
they used to have a transfer committee, which was a huge issue
Yeah.
for who Klopp replaced Rogers, was it?
Rogers.
Um,
Yeah. Brendan
yeah,
Rogers. Yeah.
where Klopp came in, and you get a bit of luck. We wanted Julian Brandt. He gets Mo Salah, right? You need something like
Works
that.
out great. Yeah. Yeah.
Ferguson got Cantona, a bit of luck.
Yeah.
You need a bit of that where no one was thinking Mo Salah was going to be the player that he was. Nobody, right?
Nobody. Yeah.
He floated from Basel to Chelsea to
To Roma.
Roma, and
Yeah.
and but so you get a bit of luck. But he needed to have a proper structure behind
Yeah.
him.
And it took.
I mean, this is what Ranić referenced, of course.
Yeah. And it
But
was 5 years into FSG ownership, I think. It wasn't like right in the beginning. They had quite a few years before that to
yeah,
back it up. And
but let's be honest, James. Right? You hate him, but he's the type of manager you want working for you.
correct.
Mark
Correct.
Kloppenberg, he comes into the changing room, staring us down and stuff. Where the fuck's our managers walking in, staring them down? Why don't they do it?
Yeah, I mean, Klopp,
Ruben
I still
Amorim sitting
blame
there
Klopp
talking
for the
about,
referee situation we have
yeah,
because he
well,
was the one who complained and changed the tide
yeah,
those years ago.
yes, they
Yeah.
want their rating letters for replays. No, where Ruben Amorim said, well, yeah, VAR doesn't give up the other end of the pitch. Well, then go do what Klopp does. Go out and use that type of intimidation. Don't say anything to them.
I know.
But that produces results
It
because
does.
it's just human nature. But
Yep.
anyway, mate. Yeah, it's really Jesus, James.
It's rough.
If you look at the faces of the United players at the end of that game, I mean, some of it angers me because you're playing for Manchester United. This should be a privilege. I understand
Yep.
you're saying, you're a human being, right? But to me, there's no excuse for not putting in the type of effort that's required to win games of football. And Wayne Rooney said this too. Wayne Rooney said something last season that there's players in that Man United when they were injured, right? There's players in that Man United team who could play. And it was really quite interesting to see, that was a couple of weeks before the final, how many players all of a sudden, a few days before that final, wanted to play. Go ahead and take a look at who they were. Big problem. And I with Amarim, go ahead, go in 2-footed on them, but do not miss these players, because either this is these players' level and they're just below average footballers, right? Or they're not giving you 100%.
Yep, agreed, 100%.
All right, matey. We'll leave it there, James. Have we anything else before we go?
That's it.
All right, matey.
We'll see what the week brings.
We'll see what happens, folks, later on through the week. If we've anything to go back for, we will. Otherwise, I will see you next week, mate.
Yes.
For another one.
Okay.
All right, man. I feel it.